I moved to Poland about almost 3 years ago, and I'm recording this video to give you an explanation why I moved out, why I think it's a good step for a young man like myself to take, and I'm going to address some things which is very overlooked in this topic. Because a lot of people speak about, oh, we're going to move to Dubai, we're going to do this, but they're not thinking about the real picture, and it's there, it's real. That's why it's the real picture. So I'm going to talk about these things because I think it's important for a lot of you guys to know what you need to know and what to expect, because you can't just move somewhere and just stay and live there. You have to have a residency, you have to pay taxes, you need to officially be allowed to be in a country. These are things that nobody talks about. It's the same as having a business where nobody talks about actually the fact that you need an accountant or you need to take care of your accounting in general and you need to be registered as a business. All these different things. There's so many things that where people give you a subject, give you a topic, they don't give you that full picture. So that's what I want to do here. And I want to start off by my personal journey. So I lived in Belgium most of my life. I'm from the Netherlands, and I decided to move to another country because of many reasons. But first of all, I'm going to give you a background story as to how I was able to do this. Because it's not just being in a situation where you can move, and we can talk about it too, which is you need to have your income and need to have everything in order. It's also about being able to be comfortable with that decision, or at least make the decision even if you're not comfortable yet. So for me, like my journey, I dropped out of college, started my own business before I actually dropped out, and then I went full time into the online entrepreneurship. While I started out, I was working with some other companies, working with some entrepreneurs, and I found myself in a team with some guys who were constantly traveling. Like, they're all from the Netherlands as well, just as where I was from. And they were in Dubai, they were in Bali, they went to so many different places. And I was like, man, maybe I should do this too. Like, I should discover this for myself as well. So I like the idea of traveling and things like that. And then I remember I had this meeting, which was on a Monday. There was this meeting with 3 other guys of the team who were much more further ahead in their journey. They were people who already had made millions online. Some of them had such a big team. All these different stories. They were kind of like a decade older than me as well. So it really was that point where my shift began to happen. And what happened was we spoke about traveling, and I told him, like, you know what, I'm considering maybe I should go on a travel, like a solo trip myself, because I see so many of you guys and doing that. Maybe it's something I should explore. And we began to talk about that. And my decision was purely made because of the social proof almost I got from the people around me. Because I was sharing, like, hey, I like the idea, but I'm not too sure. And I told him as well, like, you know what, like, I like the idea, maybe it's something good for me, but I would rather just go with my boys, you know what I mean? Like, I would just want to go with my friends and chill and things like that. And I remember that one of the persons in the meeting, he told me, well, the reason you're saying that is because you've never done that before. You're saying you want to go with your boys because that's the only thing you've done. When he said that, it was like, you know what, that's true, that's true. And then he told me a story as well where he went to Brazil for the first time after something happened, and he came back 6 years after a row. The other person told me he was going to United States and he came back only 6 months after, and he had such a big story. And this other person who was in Dubai at the time in his villa, he said to me, like, this is the best decision you can make in your life. And I was like, fuck it, let's do it. So I booked like literally a trip the day itself or one day after, and the week after I went to Portugal, which was the first solo trip I took. And that experience was incredibly important, and it also led me to make the decision to be able to move completely somewhere else permanently. When I went to Portugal, it was a very important moment in my life. And just for your idea, when I went to Portugal, it wasn't even the main season. It was around November-ish. So the temperature wasn't ideal and it wasn't really the top season. But I just had to go, and in my mind I was like, you know what, Portugal seems nice, I'll just go there. So I booked a trip, booked like a 5-star hotel for myself for like 6 days, 6 nights, and it was super great. Like, I genuinely had a great time there, and I did many things which I've never done before, which were completely natural and didn't really feel like a challenge. It was just that I've never allowed myself to do these things. And by that I mean, I went for the first time in my life alone to a restaurant, or I was actually alone in another country, in another place, going somewhere by myself, using the public transport, doing all these things, and just even talking with people. I was surprised by myself how more social I actually became by being there out by myself. And all those different things, which are such simplistic things in itself, just allow me to grow that comfort. I never went to a restaurant by myself, and the idea of it was super strange. Like, I genuinely would almost feel anxiety of thinking about going somewhere just completely alone. Like, it didn't make sense. But after doing that and after being there, I really developed that new level of comfort within myself, which really helped me grow as a person. And right now, like, I'm going anywhere alone and I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm purely in my comfort. I'm purely in my own comfort zone. So it's, regardless of where I'm going, I'm perfectly fine to go somewhere else. Now, that's completely separate from having a social life, but I'm just bringing in the picture here because it is such a big thing. It is such a thing where you just have to do something which you've never done before. And I remember when I booked my trip, within that week of time span, I didn't give it too much thought. Like, I was just like, okay, cool, it will happen. I didn't really think about it too much. Up until the night before, I was with my friends, I was chilling there, and my other friend was driving me back home that night before, and I was genuinely feeling some anxiety, really. Like, I was kind of afraid a little bit, like, damn, shit, what's going to happen? Like, I've never done this. So that kind of was there, but then from the moment I was on the plane, it just felt completely natural. I was at the airport. I even had some conversation with some people there. I was in there for the Portugal for a week. I've met some people. I spoke with people. I even chilled with some people. Like, I had such a good time, and it was just because I did something which I've never done before. And I want to reflect on it as well for when I went to Dubai, which was basically a year after that. And in the meantime of going to Portugal, which was in November of that year, 2022. Then all of 2023, I went to like 10 countries total, literally 10. And at the end of that year, 2023, I went to Dubai, which was one of my last destinations. And that was the first time I went outside of Europe. So when that happened, I also did something new. I explored more of the world than just Europe. And as soon as I was in the plane, to Dubai, I was not even there yet. As soon as I was in the plane, I just felt like mission unlocked. Like, I just felt I did it. Okay, cool, I can always do this again. And I think those small steps, like those actual things to do, are what's very important for you to develop, especially as a young man. Like, you need to be able to develop yourself. And that's why I also think that being able to move somewhere is such a big step. Now, there's a different perspective to this, because you can also bring up the argument that if you invest in the city where you're in, you're going to have more potential there. People will know you much more quicker. You can build up a bigger reputation, especially if you do some sort of local business. It could be a very good decision to stay locally. However, for me, it was just kind of renewing my environment and allowing myself to be my own energy. I didn't have to live with my parents. I didn't have to be with the same people I've seen for 10 plus years. It allowed me to actually bring my own energy into life, which is so important. And I think that's why moving out is one of the best things to do, because it's not just being in a different place with potentially better food or potentially lower prices or whatever that could be, but it's also that you're putting yourself in a position where you as a person can be in your own energy. And if you live with other people, you can even create that energy together. Because what happens is, if you're staying in the same town forever, you're not innovating yourself. And to me, that was a very dangerous thing. Looking back at it, I think, I should just went way sooner. I should have gone years ago. But obviously that's easy to say afterwards. But what's such an important point here is that if you are in a situation where you don't really know what to do, you just have to realize that a lot of your energy is going to your fixed environment. You didn't choose the family you have. You didn't choose who went to class with you, which might in coincidence be some of your best friends from fucking lower school, from high school. So it just, your life is almost created for you. And you need to really take your life in your own hands. You really need to make sure that you make your own decisions, which to me is very important. Like, I want to have self-direction. I want to choose for myself what are some things I can do, how can I develop. And it's important that you embrace that. It's very important that you actually take the decision to say, hey, you know what, I'll just go by myself. Because regardless of how good your relationship is with these people, whether that's your direct family or more closer family or even your friends, their energy almost feels fixed. I was in a situation where I had some great friends, like we could chill, we could laugh, but they never really took things that serious as I did. They never wanted to do things which I wanted to do. And even if I tried to push them, like you're seeing my books here, that's one of the first things I did. Like, I started reading books, and now there's a lot of arguments of people saying, oh, you know, it's a little bit corny, but I still think it's incredibly valuable, right? But regardless of that, I was reading these books, I was watching these videos, I was actually trying to do things, and I was almost criticized by people around me. Like, they're almost laughing about it. And if I look at them right now, which is literally, let's say, 2-3 years ago, they're still doing the right thing. I've been surrounded by the same people from the neighborhood for such a long time, and if I look back at that right now, they're the same age as me, maybe 1-2 years older, and their life is literally going down. They're literally just in a situation where their life doesn't get better. It literally gets worse. They're just struggling to get a job. They're still struggling to stop smoking cigarettes like from fucking 5 years ago. And I'm just in such a different stage, and that's so important. And in the meantime of living somewhere else, I've gone back a few times, like I've gone back because of my family and things like that. So I went back to the Netherlands and I stayed there. And I love to do that. Like I like to go back there and just be with some friends and family. But it really drains my energy at this point. It's almost difficult to be around with people if you're just such ahead of them. And that's not saying that I'm better than them as a person. Maybe that's true. But it's just the fact that you're evolving as them. And I try to make very rational statements where I can say, you know what? I'm actually not even 25 years old. I've been to 10 plus countries. I lived in another country. I've done all these different things. I've made more money than most people. So you're automatically ahead of a lot of people just because they're staying in that comfort zone. If I go back to my old neighborhood where I've always used to live and I go around the street, I see the school where I went to school, which is before high school, and the same teachers are still there. They're there for 30, 40, 50 years. They're just never brought any change in their life. And that's how it goes for most people. And it's very crazy to think about that because you're not choosing to live there. Your parents choose to put you there. And that might be a good decision. You might be in a very good place. But you still have to be able to outgrow that. And what's super important to put in mind as well is that your parents are in a completely different state. And a lot of your friends could be in that way as well. Because if you're surrounded by people who might be a little bit older or they're just having a completely different pattern, for example, you have some friends going to college and you're not, or you're going to college and you have friends who are not going to college, you're just in different type of states and you can't allow yourself to get infected by people, which is why law 10 of the 48 laws of power is one of the most important laws, because it talks about people being infections, and that's very dangerous to be around them and very dangerous to actually get caught up in that energy. So you need to really think about the energy you're spending time with. And it could be that your close people who are around you, they're good for you, like you actually like them, you might even really genuinely love them. But that doesn't mean that it's always good for you. Because if I go back now to the Netherlands or to Belgium, I'm having a genuine great time. I've even came to a point where now I can enjoy spending time with my parents much more than I did before, just because I've grown more as a person and I've begun to be my own man. And just because of all of those things, you're just developing as a person, right? And even with everything that happens there, if I now go back, I need to help my mom with some things, I need to help my dad with some things, and it's not a problem, but it's the reality. If I were to live with close to my family, even if I live like in the same town and it's like 20 minutes away, I still have to do things for them. They still will most likely need something every week. And that's just one of the days in the week. And that's not being selfish, because it doesn't mean that you don't care about them. But your energy is limited because you're just surrounded by people you're not choosing to be around with. And that's super important. So the reason I'm sharing all of this is just because it makes a lot of sense for you to take that own route. And also keep in mind that if you are improving yourself, if you're putting a bet on yourself and you're building your empire for yourself, really dedicated to you only, it makes it much more easier to help other people eventually. And especially if you're in an environment where there's a lot of struggle, maybe there's a lot of pain, you're going to stay in that. So you can better step out of that, do your own thing, and then come back with positive influence. Because if you're staying on that level, you're always going to be tied to that. You're never going to be able to actually break out of that. Whether that's your friends who are doing the same things for 20 years, or whether that's your family who have some pain and struggles and things like that. So that's just some of the things which is really important to me, why I highlight this journey. And then for me, after I went to Portugal, after I went to some of these places, I had to move out. I spoke with some other people, I've got some advice and things like that, but I came to a point where I realized now is the best time to move out. And I was also a little bit forced to move out because of some things going on, but it was ultimately clear that I had to move. And then when I was thinking about that, I didn't really thought for a second to move to the same place, to move to the same city I've always lived in, or to live in the same country even. So what was going on in my mind was that, you know what, I need to move to a different country, because if I do that, I'm going to automatically do something which is out of my natural way. And I can always go back. And that's the thing, you can always go back. Even if you're going somewhere completely else, if you're moving back, most of the people you used to spend time with are still there. And even if not, the environment is most likely the same. So just by putting that in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to move somewhere else. Now I just need to figure out where. And this is where the legal things comes in place, because I was quite early determined to stay within Europe. First of all, I have only been to Dubai outside of Europe, but I was clear that, you know what, I just need to make sure that I can actually have a home base. I need an address, because if I move somewhere else, like, you're going to have to put things on paper. And a lot of people don't talk about that. They think, oh, you're just going to rent a house and you're there. But that's not how it works. You need to get registered. You need to pay your insurances, all these things. So you always have to take those things in account. And that's why you see a lot of people, especially younger guys, who are traveling. They are going to Thailand, they are going to Dubai, but they're still living with their parents. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's bad. You know, it could be a good situation to not having to pay bills and things like that and still travel. But it's a very different thing if you're actually needing to move out, first of all, and going somewhere else. So if you're making those type of decisions, make sure to keep that in mind. Make sure that you're actually checking into what is required for a visa, how can you do all these things, because you most likely need to work, you need to have an education, or you need to study, or you need to start a business. So for me, I closed down my business in Belgium and I just started up a new business in Poland, doing the exact same thing, but just on paper. That was a move. And those are the things you need to think of, right? It's very important that you actually take care of those things. And with that being said, the decision for me to go to Poland was quite impulsive. I had this idea of Poland being a great place. I just had the idea. I've never went there. I didn't know anybody here. I had zero pre-knowledge. I literally looked at Google Maps and I thought, seems nice. So when I was traveling in 2023, I actually visited here before. So I was in Cyprus for a few weeks with some guys, rented a house there, spent some time there, and then I flew from Cyprus directly to Poland, and then I went to Krakow, and after I went to Krakow, I went to Warsaw. So I went to 2 different cities there just to check it out. And I remember really good what that feeling was like, because I was in Warsaw in a hotel for, I believe, a few nights, 2 or 3 nights. And after I came there, I was eating things, and so I was going out, I was eating a little bit, and I came back to my hotel, and I was putting my laptop down. I was going to do some work because I was still working while I'm traveling. And I looked around and I just felt that comfort, and I was like, you know what, this is going to be it. Like, it's going to be it. I just could feel that I'm in my own energy. When I came back, there was a time span of about 1 to 2 months. And after that, I came here to live here permanently. So I do think it's important that you try out things. You should ideally visit a place before you decide to move there and things like that. But just being able to, first of all, expand your borders by trying out different places and actually going somewhere is what to me was the first step. And then I broke that out with saying, you know what, I'll just make the move. I'll just go somewhere else. And I did calls with accountants. I tried to figure things out. I just had to make sure to do my things and make sure that's all clear and in order. And then I made my move. It was very easy. I looked for apartments online, just did that completely online. Came here with the plane, checked the apartment, was super sick, paid that things, and we just kept going from there. So I just stayed there for a long time. Now I've even gone to a different apartment, and I've even grown a network here. I know quite some people here. I'm meeting a lot of new people. I'm doing so many more new things, and even without knowing anyone. And that might not be the most strategic move, but it is a move I made. And those are one of the things you can always think of, where even if you don't know anybody, you can still do that. I do think it's incredibly important to have some form of security and reliability. You need to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to have enough money to do this. I need to have a fixed income to do this. So those things are incredibly important. But when it comes to actually going somewhere, there's so many amazing, great places, especially if you're from like a Western country like a Germany or like a Netherlands and things like that. To me, it just doesn't make sense to stay there. And you have to make that conclusion for yourself, because you need to figure out what you know. I like Poland a lot because it's just a good lifestyle. I can be in my routine. I can do my thing here just day by day. And it's not too foreign. It's not too alien from what I'm used to. Because I like Dubai. It's great, but I don't see myself living there. To me, it's too entertainment focused. It's just not, it doesn't give me the feeling of actually being in a home place. And right here, you have good supermarkets, you have a ton of great food, like actually high quality, super tasty food. It's a little bit cheaper, but that's not even the main reason. And just all by all, like, it just puts you in a better environment. So you have to make the decision for yourself. But if you're a young man and you're considering to moving out, you're considering to going to another country, I think it's one of the best moves you can make. Alright guys, so thank you for watching this. I appreciate you taking the time to actually go to this. If you have any questions, if you're thinking about doing something, let me know, hit me up, because I know how important it can be to just speak with somebody who's done it before. So I'm definitely here. You can reach out to me on my socials. And with that being said, have a great day.